Hello again, and welcome to Kingdom Fit Friday. I want to, as the topic name suggests, talk about one of the keys. I think it's a real key to our walk, and that is fasting. It's actually a disciplined fasting, it is. And you may be someone who has fasted. You may be someone who knows about fasting but has never actually done it. I want to actually look at today this this tool. It is really a tool for us because God does so much for us. He moves mountains in our lives. He does so much in us, through us as well. But there are times where we actually have to do things ourselves, and fasting is one of those things. And for, let me clarify what fasting is. It's a um, voluntary abstaining from food, but it's for spiritual purposes. There's a lot of fasting that goes on in the health world, but that's purely for health benefits. And of course, there are health benefits to fasting, but biblically talking, we do it for a spiritual purpose. And it is so fundamental, I believe, for our Christian walk. And I believe not many people do it because we like food too much. And there is pain involved for some when we do fast, when we actually abstain and when we actually deny ourselves. But that is part of actually the blessing. But it also shows you the hold that food has or can have on your life. And you know, we know Jesus said these words. He said, "When you pray." So he assumed that as a Christian we would pray. He didn't say if. He said when. When you pray, he said you do it like this. You don't do it like this, but you do it like this. When he's talking, I believe, to the Pharisees. But in the same line, he said when you fast. So, as a Christian, we all know the importance of fasting and how important that is with our walk with God. But, like I said, he talked about fasting in exactly the same line. So, just as important as prayer is, fasting is also. It is so important to do it regularly. Um, and like I said, Jesus expects it because he said, when you fast, not if. So he expects us to do it. And there is a number of reasons that I want to actually share with you as to why. And I think the first one is to do with humility. Because pride, pride is, it's almost safe to say pride is the root of all sin. It all comes from pride. And, you know, the only way to remove pride is to humble ourselves. And it's not scriptural to actually say, God, humble me, because throughout the scriptures, God says, humble yourself. So we've actually got to humble ourselves in order to get rid of the pride. That's one way we do it. There are others. But David said in Psalm 35, in verse 13, he said, I humbled myself with fasting. I humbled myself. That word myself in the King James Version is my soul. So it is, we're a body, physical body, soul, and we've got a spirit. So the soul of our bodies, that is the ego. That is the self-assertive part of our nature. And it expresses itself in three ways: in our will, our mind, and our emotions. So those are the things that say, I think, I want, and I feel. Does the ego, it's our ego, it's the egotistical nature that we have. Like I said, it's a self-assertive. And that is what needs to be humbled, because, the flesh nature is actually in opposition to the things of the spirit. It says the carnal mind is enmity against God. So we want to be a people who are walking less by the flesh, less by those emotions, by our will, by our soul, but we want to be people who are in the spirit and walking in the spirit. And to do that, we have to kill the flesh. And one way is through fasting. And that is one of the key reasons I believe Jesus said to fast. So to humble ourselves is one reason. It is a discipline. It's a spiritual discipline. And I believe it's something we have to do regularly. I personally do it at least one day a week, a certain day. And sometimes, depending on what I have on, I might do more. But one of the other reasons is seeking direction. And in Nehemiah, not Nehemiah, it's in Ezra, I beg your pardon. In Ezra chapter 8, he was taking the captives who were in Babylon. They had been exiled from Jerusalem, taken to Babylon. Now it was time to return. Ezra took those captives back. But before he did that, in chapter 8, verse 21, this is what he said. He said, "Then I proclaimed a fast there at the river of Ahava, that we may humble ourselves before our God to seek from him the right way." So that's talking about direction. The right way for us and our little ones and all our possessions. For I was ashamed to request of the king an escort of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy on the road, because we had spoken to the king, saying, "The hand of our God is upon all those for good who seek him, but his power and his wrath are against all those who forsake him." So we fasted and entreated our God, that means searched out, entreated our God for this, and he answered our prayer. So he talks about humbling, but he talks about direction. He said he sought God for the right way. This was all in the context of praying and fasting. If you're going to be fasting, it's good to couple that with prayer, of course, because they're both of the spirit, and you want to join them together. You always want to be in prayer and fast at the same time. So they got direction from God. He answered their prayers, he said, and so they had a protected rite of passage through the way they had to go past all the raiders and the enemy, and they were safe. So if you are someone who wants clear direction in your life, I've done this before and God's answered me. I've had the specific thing that I came to God about a number of years ago, and He clearly answered me. But I was in prayer and I was fasting at the same time, and He gave me a clear direction. So for you, if you are unsure about a direction you want to go in, you can pray, of course, but you fast as well. Because when you fast, it's almost like, and I'll illustrate it this way: it's like a pipe, a pipe that's somewhat blocked. Still has a flow going through it, still has water, so to speak. But when you fast, that pipe, it's almost like it's completely flushed out of all the gunk. You've got a clear passage between you and God. When you fast, you will actually hear God a lot more clearer. Sometimes I hear God a lot clearer. Other people I know always hear God clearer when they fast, and particularly when they cut out certain things in their lives. They hear God clearer. So that is on an individual level, but it's also corporately, because Ezra and the people fasted. The other one is through breakthrough in our prayers. If there's something, could be relational, could be something physically that's ailing you, and you've been praying for something for years, if you couple that with fasting, that can break through to heaven. That prayer can break through to get the answer that you want. And in Isaiah 58, there's the Pharisees, or it's not the Pharisees as such, but it's the religious people, and they're fasting. And in chapter 58, they're saying to God, why have we fasted and you, as in God, have not seen? Why have we afflicted our souls and you take no notice? God says, in fact, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure and exploit all your laborers. So in other words, they're saying, we're fasting and God, you're not hearing our prayers. You're not doing anything. God says your motives are incorrect. That's why I'm not listening. But then he goes on and he talks about the motives which are correct. And he says in verse 6, is this not the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke. And it goes on and on. But there's a spiritual warfare there. It talks about spiritual warfare. It talks about heavy burdens. It talks about breaking yokes. But it's in the context of fasting. And so for us today, if we are someone who needs deliverance spiritually, often fasting, you'll get your breakthrough because it's completely scriptural. And it also, you see, when you deny the natural, so the food, for example, you actually get more of the supernatural. When you deny the natural, you get more of the supernatural. And, like I said, you hear God clearer. And if you're someone who's never fasted, don't go out and do a 3-day or a 5-day or whatever fast. Just start with maybe a meal and then build up from there. Keep your water uptake. Don't stop having water. Just talking about food. You just start with a meal or something. But you'll start to see, first thing you'll notice is how much you probably want food. And that is the flesh crying out. But you see, that's the part that needs to be humbled. And that is the part that you need to reign over. You need to actually humble yourself and you need to reign over your inner man. Your spirit man actually needs to grow stronger, and your ego, your soul actually needs to, metaphorically speaking, die. That flesh needs to die, and the inner man needs to become stronger. You only have to fast for a little while, and you'll see often how much food has a hold on you. We talk about gluttony, and gluttony is probably the most respectable sin in the Bible, but it's a sin nonetheless. And you can actually see if you fast that sometimes food has a bigger hold on you than you actually realize. And you might say, well, I don't need to fast. I could, but I don't want to. It may be because it's got a hold on you. So, that's just something between you and the Lord, but you have to check your motives there. I don't believe it's scriptural to say, well, I'll just fast TV or I'll just fast my phone. It's food. Paul fasted. Jesus fasted. Esther fasted. Ezra and a few more. Moses, they all fasted food. And so there's such a great power, and there'll be such great breakthrough in your life if you set, regularly a pattern of fasting weekly. And you'll see so many benefits, because like I said, it's pride that gets in the way. Pride is always that thing knocking on the door. It always wants to come in, and that thing has to be humbled. That pride in us, that ego, that soul has to be humbled, because you know what? God says He resists the proud and He gives grace to the humble. So if we are someone with pride, we actually can't receive the grace of God. So how do we get rid of pride? Well, God says, humble yourself. And one way is that we fast. So maybe it's not what you wanted to hear, but I want to let you know that there is so much power and there's so many benefits and blessings in your fast. And I would actually encourage you to read Isaiah 58, because that is entitled Fasting That Pleases God. And there's a lot of promises in there that God makes. He makes a number of promises to those who fast with the right motives. It talks about healing, talks about righteousness, and all these sort of motives are correct and they're pleasing before God. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that has been helpful, and I really, I would suggest that you actually take note seriously, because Jesus, just as much as Jesus expects you to pray, in the same line He expects us as followers to fast. So I would seek the Lord and really ask God what He wants your fast to look like. Maybe might be one meal, it might be a day, might be like 24 hours. You just seek the Lord and you'll be led. And you'll be blessed, and you're going to grow. Because I really believe that with fasting, there's a certain level you can go maturity wise with as a Christian. But for someone who doesn't fast, like you almost, there's like a limit. I really believe that fasting is something that pushes you beyond to more and greater things in God. So chew on that. Look over those scriptures again, and I'll see you next Friday. But enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you, like I said, next Friday. Bye for now.